I perceive there to be three ranges of neutral. Close range combat or scramble situations where it's mostly RPS because reaction is out the window. Far range where most of the time one player chooses to be here for reasons and can get closer at almost no cost. And then there's mid range, one I believe is most important to understand and be good at for almost every character because it's not only the most common, but the most influential range. Players can be categorized and broken down into different playstyles. If you've been in the Smash community for any length of time, you've likely heard someone be called an aggressive player or a defensive player. For example, Cola is known to be aggressive and fast-paced, but there's more to the playstyle than just the amount of moves you do or how often you do them. From what I've seen, many players don't actually take into consideration the actions that their opponent takes before they end up being this aggressive or defensive player. There's more to it than someone just jumping at you immediately, and there are important things to pay attention to if you want to be able to deal with any kind of playstyle. Four different things come into my mind for finding your opponent's playstyle. First and most importantly is their threat range, because you want to find out how they act. Their decision making in that threat range is the second one. If they're able to threaten you with a move, you want to know if they're aware of their power over that threat range. Third is your threat range and how they act around that. And fourth is, this is kind of a free one, how they start the game. Take for example this Ganon. I stand still here to see how he likes to position himself around me, and I notice that he's just on the other side of the stage. Because he pushed himself that far to the other side of the stage, odds are that he's gonna start running towards me, so I do a short hop to threaten about this much space. I go for a poke and see that it missed, and because I've never fought this guy before, I run away to see if he will autopilot mash something after he tries to take space. He does, and with a dash attack to cover a lot of range. I can guess from that alone that Ganon plays somewhat aggressive when he wants something to happen, and when he doesn't want something to happen, he'll stay as far away from me as possible so he can get ready to attack. I play more defensive here in the lower range interaction, and I notice that he doesn't want to use any grabs when he has control. I knock him down, and remember that he's most likely going to be aggressively positioning himself again, so I cover roll in. I start to pressure him after that because Cloud can shut down a lot of aggressive options with his huge range, and I score a hit, getting me better positioning. He again air dodges inwards, starts trying to attack me. I parry his attack because I didn't think I'd have to worry about grabs from his unwillingness to use them earlier. And me being absolute garbage, turn around my up B, accidents happen. Wasn't a big deal though, due to my lack of end lag. I spot dodge afterwards to avoid grabs and attacks because a lot of people try to grab you when they think they see a free opening. I stay patient after it and look for what he does after. He shields, so I start to pressure him again. It works and get a hit, landing a combo that leads to an edge guard. And now, this guy hasn't landed a hit on me yet, and I think he most likely wants time to breathe or think for himself. But Cloud can ledge jump people who just like to hang there. He wastes his jump when I ledge jump him. Don't do that when you get ledge jumped, and he dies. This Ganon had a mixture of a playstyle, I'd say leaning more towards aggressive, but he also changed whose threat range mattered more throughout the game. Look at it from this perspective. When he played defensive, my threat range mattered more, and when he played more aggressive, his threat range would matter more. Mine would matter more when he was running, and his would matter more when he was trying to attack me with mostly normal attacks instead of being patient or using any grabs. Most people have a mixture and change when they act in certain ways. Some are more popular than others, and it's important to realize when it shifts so you can keep up with the game that's happening. This awareness is something that takes time to practice, so don't give up on it if you start off weaker than you were before. I like to think of improvement past mid-level as an investment. That was all about awareness of some of these things. Now let's look at actual applications of their threat ranges. I want you to look at this next sequence and take a minute for yourself to figure out the interactions and how they evolved, how both players play, either aggressive or defensive, and why the things that worked.
3, 2, 1, go!
Now I'm going to give my take on it. And here's the thing I want you to understand. My take isn't the end all be all, and there's a million different ways you could view what happens and when it happens and why it happened. So I'm not 100% correct, no one's 100% correct, because this game is so open-ended. There could have been something I did differently, there could have been something I did better, and it's always going to be like that, just because of how this game is. Here, I'm using Cloud, but this whole threat range power thing applies to every character, because every character at some point has the power to limit the opponent's actions, whether it be they jump, they shield, they try and attack, they dash. You can always do something about it. And the importance doesn't lie on if you do something about it. The importance lies in the fact that you're aware that you can do something about it, because then you're going to make your opponent have to think. Starts off trying to pressure me with AHA, fails due to his spacing being wrong. He then jumps inward at me to force an interaction with Nair. I preemptively try to threaten him out of doing something like this, but I hadn't reacted to the fact that he was already jumping on me. He lands and does a down tilt to combo me. From my experience, jokers that do Nair into down tilt have muscle memory for it, and they aren't paying attention to the mix-up afterwards in case I shield the Nair. I land on the platform and he spaces attack wrong, so I'm able to take a less damaging hit to get away from him. He launches himself at me again with a forward air, and I start to think this is just how he plays around my threat range. I get a guaranteed up B punish on the forward air, and run back to keep my stage control in preparation for him to land and attack me again. He lands with gun, and I try and intercept his landing from the side with a cross slash, but I miss. He returns to the mid range, because after his landing he does not want to be next to me, and he wants more space so he can start his own game that he is comfortable with. Now I want to make sure to set up a quote-unquote wall with my shield to protect myself from his aggressiveness in the mid-range. I was doing this out of anticipation, not reaction here, and that was because of what he did at the very start. He sends out the AHA, signaling to me that he knows that he's in the threat range to run straight at me for a dash attack or jump at me for a callout. He reads a random full hop that would have been odd for me to do and retreats again for his comfy range. After his retreat here, I know he's most likely going to hope that I do something to fall into his attacks. I start controlling the space in front of me, because my sword and preemptive short hop give me the advantage if he runs into me. I mess up the fair timing, but shield afterwards because he's in the air, in front of me, and I'm under the threat of an attack. He lands and tries to grab me, but I'm still watching him land, and know that again, he's most likely going to be aggressive. So I press up B to stop him under the threat of being grabbed. This was partly on reaction and partly on reasoning on his grab threat range, because I saw him land without an attack. I know this up B sends him onto the platform, and I get ready to platform pressure him since I think he'll air dodge out of the fear of the angle he got sent at. I mess up the combo, reading the wrong DI on the third up air, and he jumps back to center stage and hits me onto the platform and tries to catch me with an up air. He gives up all positioning to go for one read, something that he's done throughout the entire game, like that starting there. So I start corner pressuring him and do a short hop cross slash mix up, hoping he'll mash something based off of how he's been acting. He's in almost every range for all of my attacks. His response under the threat of all of my moves in the corner is the down tilt after his immediate action of shielding. Try and low profile my things with the hitbox. He down tilts through it because my spacing was a little bit off, and I press up air out of hit stun because it's a decent combo breaker, moving Cloud all the way down to a little ball on frame 1. And I start trying to attack him again after I land to keep his buttons off of me. If he started defending himself around the fear that he put into me with that down tilt, then he would have had an opportunity to hit me. He gets sent at a horizontal angle to me, and I follow him in the air to make sure that he lands because he doesn't want to go directly into the threat range of my forward air. He again, under the threat of all my moves, does down tilt, and I stop him with a move that he can't low profile by reading not only his option, but his timing. Timing is just as, if not more important than what they choose, especially because Cloud doesn't have very active hitboxes right in front of him. Tired of hearing me yet? Probably, so I'll end it off with a few key points and explanations so you can think like this for your own character and form your own ideas. First, be mindful of when you enter the mid-range, and then see what your opponent does first. Is it something you can categorize as defensive, like dash dances, or something aggressive, like short hops or dashes straight towards you? Then think what tools your character has to cover every angle in the mid-range. Can you air-to-air people, stuff out their dashes, pressure them if they dash into you, or throw a projectile at them to force them to act preemptively? Then think about their character's tools for the same thing. If they're aggressive, can you dash back to whiff punish their immediate actions, like them dash attack or jumping on you? Can you outrange certain tools? What tools put you at more risk? What tools put you at less? Remember, there's always some risk involved in anything you do, because dashing back corners you, so you can't play your whiff punish game anymore without falling off stage, and staying still leaves you vulnerable to attacks. It's a mental thing, and when starting a game, for most players, your threat ranges over them need to be established. You need to prove to them that you know which of your moves do what. So for Cloud, if I start the game aggressively and run up into cross slash after some dash dances, that person, want to or not, and if the hit lands or not, will be influenced by the callout effect, and feel like they need to do something to prevent the same thing from happening, or keep on punishing my aggressive attack-based playstyle. That established threat becomes useful because it changes how they act in these threat ranges. You can also do this while playing defensive. If I anti-air someone for trying to jump at me, they're going to change something about how they approach, or if they do at all. If they want to run at Cloud but don't want to get cross-slashed, and they think they have to run up and shield, try and bait out the option, or try and stuff out the option if they outrange it or outframe data. Again, these things inherently have flaws, like shield getting pressured or straight up grabbed, dashes getting called out or costing them space, leaving them more susceptible to getting hit by a move later if their bait didn't work, and attacks getting whiff punished with a fast move your character has. Your mid-range needs to be based on seeing these options the opponent chooses and actively thinking about why they're doing it, so you can gain more power and influence in a match. Then you can position yourself to play aggressively around them, or defensively and more reaction-based. Remember, running straight in and positioning yourself to react will both have counterplay against them. If your opponent starts to punish or take advantage of your actions, that means you can also punish or take advantage of theirs by paying attention to what they did before they took the action, so that you can keep that action as a signal for when they'll try to do something to you. You want to think about ways to deal with their anticipatory behaviors to actually form counterplay against your opponent's counterplay, meaning you're actually playing the deeper game at least one level.